This is my apartment, and this tiny room is my home office. I think it's technically a closet considering it's 5 feet wide, 8 feet long, and has no windows or ventilation. And that means when I work in here with the door closed, which I like to do when I'm filming, it gets hot in here fast. So I just closed the door and I have this little thermometer in here that tells me it's already 81 degrees, but I'm gonna do a little experiment and try to work as long as I can in here until it's so hot that I just can't stand it anymore. Let's see how long I can last. I cannot stand it anymore. 83.8 degrees, and the humidity also rose significantly to 62%. I am so sweaty. The air in here also just feels disgusting. The problem is that this is a rented apartment, so I can't just go busting holes in the walls to run an air conditioning line from our balcony windows to my isolated studio. Because like most apartment buildings in Vancouver, this one does not have central air conditioning. Traditionally, Vancouver just doesn't get very hot in the summer, so builders didn't bother installing permanent air conditioning units. But like many places, it's been getting a little hotter here than usual.
The extreme heat is smashing temperature records.
This is unusual weather for this part of Canada, and it's being made worse by the fact that 60% of BC residents don't have air conditioning at home.
Well, easy solution, just get a portable air conditioner, which I did, and I even paid the big bucks to replace my janky cardboard window insert with a nice plexiglass one. I know I could have made it myself, but sometimes it's nice to just pay someone else to do work for you. Crazy concept, I know. And now our living room / bedroom is nice and cool for sleeping, and back in my studio, it's still about 83 degrees. This room is just too far away from the air conditioner for it to make any difference, and even if it did, closing that door seals this room into a sweaty oven. I need to bring that nice cool air all the way to this end of the apartment and into this room with the door closed, all without violating the terms of my lease. This is what 3D printing was made for. First things first, I need to capture all that cold air leaving the air conditioner. So I designed a hood that can fit over the outlet and funnel that air into a 4-inch hose. This is a pretty big print, and I had to split it in half so I could print it on my Bamboo Lab A1. Now, Bamboo Lab is sponsoring today's video, but even if they weren't paying me, I would be printing on this machine all day long because it is fast, super reliable, and easy to use. If you're into 3D printers, you might hear Bamboo Lab and think expensive, fast, premium machines. But the A1 comes in at an entry-level price without sacrificing that reliability, speed, and print quality that Bamboo Lab is known for. The A1 has fully automatic calibration, advanced active flow control, and vibration compensation, so you can start printing without having to waste time tinkering. And with the AMS Lite, it has the only mature, multicolor printing solution in this price category. If you want a full-sized entry-level printer that just works, this printer is for you. Now, whenever I print functional parts, I like to use PETG, which is more durable and less brittle than PLA, but it tends to print slower and with worse quality. However, Bamboo Lab has solved that problem with their brand new PETG HF. The HF stands for high flow because this filament prints twice as fast as standard PETG. This was perfect for the tambour doors that I designed for the vent hood. Since they're going to live in the window, they need that UV resistance of PETG, and the living hinge, which is made up of 2 layers of material, needs to hold up to bending back and forth. Honestly, I can't imagine going back to standard PETG after using this stuff, and I'm printing every single piece in this project with PETG HF on the Bamboo Lab A1. Thank you to Bamboo Lab for sponsoring this video, and check out the links in the description to learn more. So this magnetic quick release for the duct mount probably wasn't necessary, but it makes the whole system a bit more modular in case I ever want to change the size of the ducting or cap this off. Now, this air conditioner isn't actually ours. I'm borrowing it from my brother-in-law while they're out of the city for a year, and I didn't want to permanently modify his AC unit, so I designed the vent hood so I could attach it to the unit with command strips. The basic idea is when the sliding doors are open, the AC cools our living room. And when they're closed, all that cold air is forced into ducting that leads back to my studio. However, any leaks in the system will drastically reduce the amount of cold air that makes it through the ducting, and the command strips left a huge gap between the vent hood and the AC unit. So I just picked up some of this caulking cord and used that to seal the gap. Works great and not permanent. With the cold air captured, now I need to get it back to my studio. I wanted to avoid our apartment looking too much like an industrial wasteland, so I chose white ducting and printed these brackets out of white PETG HF, with the hopes that they would kind of blend into the wall. And in the spirit of making this project as renter-friendly as possible, the plan was to attach the brackets to the wall with command strips until they immediately failed. At that point, I remembered that every apartment I've ever lived in, we've drilled little holes in the walls to hang paintings and put up shelves, and that's typically within the purview of what's allowed. So I designed these little adapter pieces to glue onto the brackets so I could screw them into the wall nice and secure. All right, so I got the ducting run from the AC unit up this wall, across the corner there, around the corner, over the sprinkler. I was pretty nervous about that, but I think we're plenty far away that there should be no danger. Around this little jog here, and we have made it to the hallway, and the studio is right here. Obviously, I'm gonna have to add some more brackets and connectors and stuff, but if I stretch this duct out, this is sort of the ultimate length that we're looking at. But there's a problem. If I turn the AC unit up to high, open up the sliding doors, and this thing is blasting cold air. Now, if I close them, the air is forced into the ducting, come around to the other end, and we have a trickle of air. It's not bad, it's definitely flowing, but nowhere near the airflow at the air conditioner. And it is cold, so I'm still optimistic that it will work, but I think there's just too much friction through the line. There's lots of places for that air to lose velocity. So I picked up this inline fan to boost the airflow through the ducting. Unfortunately, it only came in black, so I spray painted it white so it wouldn't look horrible in our apartment. And luckily, in the hallway, very close to my studio, there's an outlet on the wall. We can just hang it up there, cord dangles down, and exactly lands at the outlet.
Every day this week, there's just been more monster. Wow, it's quite something. I might have to name it. Maybe Nessie.
So I got the ducting all the way to the door of my studio, but I still need to get it into this room with the door closed. And that might seem like an impossible task unless I drill a hole in the door. But what if I told you this room isn't actually sealed? If we look under the door, there is a crack about 3/4 of an inch tall. Now you might be thinking, Morley, are you really gonna force all that air through a tiny crack under the door? Well, I did some math. The cross-sectional area of a 4-inch duct is 11.6 inches squared. Now, if we take advantage of the entire 32-inch width of that crack and take into account the thickness of a 3D printed vent, we get a cross-sectional area of 13.9 inches squared, which in simple terms means there is plenty of room to get all of that air under the door. I can't believe no one's ever done this before. I looked online and found nothing. This was probably the trickiest design of this entire project, and I think whenever you're trying something totally new, the best thing is to keep it simple. Having the duct on the hinge side of the door keeps it out of the way in the hallway, so I designed the vent so the duct could fall directly on top of it. The vent is basically a long box with a bunch of stiffeners, and since patching holes in a door is a bit trickier than patching holes in drywall, I added these brackets so I can attach it to the door with command strips. This is a very long print, so I split it into 4 sections and sliced off the top off of each piece so I could print everything with 0 support material. This made a huge piece relatively fast to produce. Each build plate only took 1 to 2 hours to print, so within a day, this thing was ready to glue together. I messed up. So I assume that the crack under the door was a consistent height, but when we scoot our insert underneath, you can very quickly tell it gets stuck right there. The gap between the door and the ground gets smaller as the door opens, especially at the end. So with the cloth sliders, we can only open up to this wide before the door gets stuck, and that's, you know, certainly gonna yank off the command strip connections. It's so frustrating because we're so close to having this thing done and functional, but I think I just have to adjust the model and reprint everything. I printed the V2 in white to be a little less obnoxious, and the observant among you might have noticed that some of the pieces of this one printed a little deformed. You can see right there, this whole edge flared up, and I had to fill that in with hot glue. After printing all the brackets, I actually ran out of white Bamboo Lab PET GHF, and I had to print this vent using some off-brand white PLA, which, in addition to warping, it actually printed slower than the PET GHF, so sometimes you get what you pay for. But even with the little printing issues, this vent slides perfectly, and I think we're ready to test. So we can go ahead and set the fan to max, close the tambour doors, plug in the inline fan. This thing is actually surprisingly quiet. I don't know if you can hear it at all through the mic. It's a very quiet whir. All right, now I'm gonna go into the studio. Oh, that's so cool. All right, I can definitely feel airflow through the bottom of the door, especially on this end, the same end, you know, the dryer hose enters. Not much on this end, but that's okay. As long as there is air coming through, that's the main idea. Now, this guy here is the other side of the equation, because the scientific among you might have been screaming at your screen during this project saying, Morri, cold air falls. You're injecting cold air at the bottom of the room, so it's just gonna like live in the floor, live around your feet. Well, this little fan here is pointed upwards, so we can turn that on. Cold air comes out of the bottom of the door, and hopefully this will sort of distribute it around the room. It does add a little bit of white noise to our nice acoustic chamber, but I don't know, again, you tell me, you can probably barely hear that in the background. And here we go. Experiment starting, 79.5 degrees and 47% humidity. Very comfortable. Now, I've noticed while working in here that the humidity is a much more important factor than the temperature. That 62% humidity that we hit at the beginning of the video was horrible. It felt really sticky and it was 83 degrees. So I think as long as we stay below 80 degrees and below 50% humidity, we're golden. If we can achieve that, then this project was a success. I'm gonna start my timer, work in here for at least 45 minutes because that's what we did at the beginning of the video. Experiment starts, 79.5 degrees, 46% humidity. All right, let's just start working and we'll see what happens. All right, it's been about 45, 50 minutes, and I am so comfortable right now. The temperature did rise slightly to 80.8 degrees, but the humidity plummeted, just hit 32%. I could work in here all day. Yes, we missed the target of 80 degrees, but that really dry air makes this so pleasant. We made this closet a functional tiny office. I am so stoked. If you'd like access to behind the scenes content, my private Discord server, and other perks, click join down below to become a YouTube member. And as always, thank you to my top supporters, Paige Arlt, Luis Armendariz, and my mom, Kathy Kurt. Love you, Mom.